If you are just tuning in, this is NBC Sheila Mack Show here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm your host, Sheila Mack, and I have a special free gift announcement for you. That's right.
Are you ready for a reboot? Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAA Radio. If you're ready to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and bra straps, enjoy a listen. Here's Sheila.
Dear friends, I had to share this message because I love you all the most. I'm happy to announce that my new book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom and back into action in any situation, is now available. The heart of this book was written for you. If you're going through a tough situation this year, if you've hit a rock bottom, I want to let you know that number one, you are not alone. And next, that you can, in fact, reinvent and reboot your life on your terms. How do I know that? I know that because I've had to reinvent and reboot my life on many occasions. I can go as far back as being a little child with my parents divorcing when I was very young and then ending up going from home to home, and sometimes I ended up in very, very abusive homes. Later, I found myself at 10 and 11 years old, homeless on the streets, going from place to place and having to be very resourceful on my own. Then I found the magical foster care, and I went into this system, and I got to meet all these other girls that went through their own tough situations, and I got to hear their stories, and it was so interesting to me. I thought I was on this grand adventure, and when I was in this foster care system, one of the things that I did was there was this big mansion house that used to be the orphanage nearby, and these people bought it. So I went up to the door, maybe the first or second day I was there, and I knocked on the door and I introduced myself and I said, I want to be your personal assistant. And right away they hired me. So I had this life where I got to see what it was like to be in the foster care system, to be in a group home, to not have family contact me at all, and then have these incredible people let me work with them and teach me all these beautiful things. I got to be their personal assistant until I emancipated. I learned how to do events and art and all these amazing, incredible things because I knocked on the door. So that's one of the secrets, is knock on the door and it will be answered. You've got to step up. So in all of that, there were just these times where I did something a little bit different. And I realized that there was this dance that you can go between these two different worlds, and that it's all about a decision. It's a decision on how you show up and what you decide to do with your life that's going to make all the difference. So with that, things got great in my life. I emancipated. I ended up getting married, getting into a relationship, having children. I wanted to give back, so I had 3 of my own children. I also fostered to adopted 3 more children. At 24, I was opening gift stores. I ended up having 5 stores. And with these stores, I had this entire program to help these kids get from foster care, get into a training program when they're emancipating, and learn all the different parts of running a store, because I always wanted to give back in all I was doing. And because of that, that's another secret. When you give, you receive. It's like this law that happens. When you give back, you receive many gifts and many blessings. And the birth of the concept of this book came to me after I had traveled the world and learned with the most incredible people on the planet. And then I got settled again after traveling for 7 years straight, and I bought this beautiful home in Ventura. And a month later, after I had designed everything, put all my furniture in there and made it just perfect, on December 3rd, 2017, I lost my home and everything in it. I lost my car. I lost my cat, all within a few days. Everything that I had worked so hard to achieve was gone. And I found myself moved into a little, it was a prefab home that I had made into a vacation rental. And it was fully booked because everybody had to have a place to stay. So I ended up staying in this little shed on the side of the house. It was less than 400 square feet. And oh my gosh, I got a little bit depressed for a few days, and I thought, wait a minute, what do I do? And I got on my rebounder. I did affirmations. I decided, and it was in that moment of that decision that my destiny was shaped and things changed. I quickly was invited to work in Beverly Hills at a new job. I had been working in real estate for years at this point also, and so I got invited to work there and stayed with friends there, and then got my own place. I was able to get a replacement car quickly, and all these things happened. And one day I went back to that little cabin house as I was getting ready to finally put it on the market and sell it. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's a formula that I've used all through my life. So I sat down and I wrote out the beginnings, the Boots formula, and the steps that I needed to take, no matter the situation, the steps that I had to take to get me back on track quickly. Within a month's time, I was already moved out and moving on and happy in my life, and people were still stuck. And I thought, well, that's kind of different, it's just, there's something different. So I wrote that out, and then I sat and I thought about, what was my inspiration? What was it that I had gone through all these crazy things in my life? What inspired me? And what came to me was the memory of being at my grandparents' home. And my grandmother was, she was very interesting, yet she was a businesswoman. She never lost her feminine, and she was incredible in her business. And she made friends with all these other ladies in her age group, and they would all get together and have tea or coffee and talk for hours. They would share their rich histories about what they've gone through. I mean, there was this one lady that had escaped from a concentration camp, and she lost her entire family as a young girl. There was another lady there that her husband passed away, and she had a famous restaurant in downtown LA, and she was running it by herself, even when that wasn't like a cool thing to do or acceptable. She didn't care. She knew, and she traveled the world, and all these stories that these ladies told me. I had another lady that her and her husband escaped a country with a new ruler, and they had to leave their home, their cars, all their worldly possessions, and come to the United States without even speaking the language and start over again. And, I was 4 or 5 years old, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have my own adventures and my own stories, because life is like this. It doesn't matter where you're from. I was in Los Angeles, California. It's so diverse there. So I had these stories from everywhere, and these beautiful ladies that were my role models. I took their stories with me and I carried them with me, and they inspired me.
If you are just tuning in, this is NBC's Sheila Mack Show here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm your host, Sheila Mack, and today I have a couple of announcements. First, I would like to hear from you. That's right. I would love to hear from you. to be honest. I want to know what your breakthrough is, what your reboot is. How are you reinventing and rebooting your life? What shows would you like to hear more of? What information do you need to help you get back on track this year? And to do that, the best way to connect with me is actually through my new YouTube channel, and that is Sheila Mac Show on YouTube. And there you can see past recordings, and you can also see other information and shares that I have. And I would love for you to share in the comments there what you're needing more of and what you're rebooting this year and how we can help you get back on track. And the topic for today is elder care. That's right. There comes a point where we have to take care of our elders. That came for me at a very young age, where I took care of both my parents and grandparents all at the same time. Hear more about it on this show. This is important because it gives you some ideas on how to plan for your own care, and also, if you do have elderly parents, how to prepare for that time when they may need care in the future. So sit back and take a listen. Chapter 8: Parenting Your Parents, Eldercare. I'm a member of what they call the sandwich generation. Women who care for their parents and their children at the same time. In my case, though, it was more like a full-course meal. I took care of both sets of grandparents, my parents and my children. My mom and dad both had serious health issues at the same time that my grandparents on both sides were also having trouble. I ran around visiting relatives in 3 different hospitals and a rehabilitation center. Plus, I was running my 4 gift stores and pregnant, with all the extra emotions that come with that. I was only in my mid-20s, the only child and grandchild, so I had nobody to take over visiting one hospital after the other, or to help figure out how to care for all these people. This was so much to take on. To be the sole decision maker for all these family members, the only one to meet with doctors, to consider every option and understand every treatment. I wanted to run to my parents or grandparents and say, "Hey, give me some advice. I'm still young. How do I deal with all this?" Neither of my grandparents on either side wanted to leave their homes and go into a nursing home. When they got closer to the end of their lives, though, they had to be hospitalized. The doctor wanted them to go into a rehabilitation center, but they refused. I offered to have them come stay with me so I could take care of them in my home. They didn't like each other, though, so they didn't want to live together. They just wanted to go home. But I couldn't pay for 4 people to have the round-the-clock care they needed. We were all stuck at rock bottom together. The roles change again. This chapter is the opposite of the previous. Instead of talking about parenting your adult child, we're now going to look at the flip side, having to become a parent figure for your elderly parents once they're not able to fully take care of themselves anymore. You used to be the child, even as you're an adult, and now you have to become the parent in the relationship. You're used to having your parents be the solid rock in your life, turning to them for advice and support. And now you're responsible for making decisions about their life. The roles you have with your parent have to be turned upside down. There may be pushback from your parents, whose roles are changing too. Who the hell are you to check up on them and tell them to take their medications? But if you have built that deeper, stronger relationship discussed in Chapter 7, it will make the transition to caring for your parent easier because you have healthy boundaries and are on closer terms. Don't treat your parent like a child. Even though you're an adult with the responsibility of parenting a parent, if you treat your parent like a child, you're going to get the same results as with a child. They'll become resentful if you push them to do what you think is best without respecting what they want. Let's say you and your siblings or other relatives, if you have them, have decided to sell your parents' house because they're no longer able to live alone. You look at it as making it easier on your family to help take care of them, but they don't want anything to do with it. It's their house, and that's where they're staying. They're adults. They're used to taking care of themselves. They probably still think they've got it all under control, even though they might not have any control at all anymore. They don't want you to tell them what to do. They have to come to it themselves. You're going to continue getting that pushback unless you can honor them and plant the seeds of the idea until your encouragement leads your parent to come to that conclusion on their own. You can give them other resources and ways of looking at the situation so that instead of coming from you as a command, you're guiding them to that place. This could be as simple as asking doctors or wellness care facilities to explain the process, allowing your parent to ask questions, going on tours, and involving them in exploring their options. There is something magical about not forcing anything, yet allowing your parent to discover the options and choose what is best for them. You may be able to interview other peers who have faced similar transitions and who are really happy about their choice. It could be even better if you found a person who initially questioned or fought this choice for fear of losing their freedom and autonomy, who now finds it to be the best decision they ever made. If you Google these options, you'll find many interviews and stories that you can share with your parent. When it's their choice, just like with your children, you support their options. They get the buy-in of the outcome, the results of making that choice, and then you're not forcing it. They're like, let's go, I'm packing my bag. You're there to support them and honor what they choose to do. This is a tough time. They're going through something too, something that may be their own rock bottom, which they may or may not come out of. It may mean a very different lifestyle and quality of life. Things are already hard for your parents. Having to make this huge shift can lead to feeling a loss of control and autonomy. You don't want to make their life any harder than it has to be. Allowing your parents to maintain some personal responsibility gives them self-esteem and a sense of purpose and meaning. You are giving them that empowerment, that sense of owning their life and their decisions. Once they own it, it's so much easier than you pushing it on them. Sibling rivalry. You may have brothers and sisters or other family members who have their own feelings about the decision of what to do for your parent. Eldercare can become a conflict of the heart, which may then turn into sibling rivalry. If you have siblings who are also involved with your parent as co-trustees or caregivers, you all want the best possible wellness routine, living situation, or choice for that person, but you may all have vastly different ideas of what that looks like. When each person feels like their idea is the most informed decision, war often breaks out on the home front. When this happens, it may become necessary to get a third party involved. This could start with having a family friend, religious or community leader, or in some cases a mediator or court get involved in resolving this sort of conflict. The ideal situation, though, is to work together as a team for the common goal of honoring your parents and giving them their wishes. This makes it so much easier for everybody. One of my clients, Irma, had to work very hard to get to this place with her family. Irma is in her late 60s, but she is still considered the baby in her family. Even though she has grown children and 3 grandchildren of her own, her older siblings talked down to her, disrespected her, and treated her like a child. Her parents also treated her like a baby, while simultaneously leaning heavily on Irma and her husband financially. When Irma's dad had heart surgery, none of her siblings had the money to help out, so she and her husband paid for all the extra expenses. When Irma's mom wanted to take the lifelong dream vacation to Ireland, Irma paid for the whole family to go. As her parents got older and needed more care, and therefore more help with those expenses, it was time for Irma to have some difficult discussions. She and her husband sat down with her siblings and explained how overextended their parents were and how much they needed to avoid a financial crisis. Irma had decided ahead of time to coordinate a family pool, contributing her fair portion toward helping her parents, but she needed help coming up with additional options and supporting her parents through some tough choices. When their siblings saw just how much Irma and her husband were contributing and how well she pulled together a plan to help their parents further, they started to show her more respect. Irma and her siblings presented the available options to their parents, who ultimately decided to sell their house and move to a senior community in California called Leisure World. This gave her parents the buffer they needed and gave Irma and her husband their own space to build a nest egg without feeling the financial burden of bailing out her parents. Most importantly, Irma's parents were able to make an empowering decision about their own future, and all the siblings saw how strong they could be when they supported each other. Decision time. Sooner or later, you may become the person responsible for advocating for health care, respecting your elderly parents' wishes, and making all the difficult decisions that come with elder care. Here are some questions to think about and tips to guide you when the time comes. Where to live. At some point, your parents may have to leave the house they call home. Maintaining the same level of independent living they did previously may become too hard, unless they are able to have a full-time staff to help. And there are a lot of decisions that have to be made when the time comes. Will they go into a rehabilitation center, senior housing, or nursing home? Or will they live with you or another relative? How are you going to provide for their needs? How are you going to pay for it? A lot of the cost is not covered by insurance, so it has to come out of somebody's budget. Are you going to be able to keep their house? Or will you rent it out or sell it? This is a big decision. People are tied to where they live. Because you don't want to take away your parents' agency if you don't have to, you may consider asking, at this point, is your house serving you, or are you serving your house? This gives them the option of participating in the choice. It's their life, and this is where they're going to live, so it's best to let them choose. I know an older woman who is absolutely devoted to animals. She spent much of her life rescuing greyhounds from the racetrack. She made it clear that when she passed away, she wanted to donate everything to an animal society. But she didn't have to wait until she died to make a difference. Ultimately, with the help of her family, she decided to change her living situation, selling her house and moving into a senior center. She realized that with the money she saved on upkeep for a big house with only one person living in it, she had more to give to the animals. Her empty house didn't give her the same level of happiness she got from snuggling baby kittens. That decision totally extended her life. She enjoyed every moment of it, and of course, the animals were absolutely blessed. Quality of life. Maybe your parents aren't sick, but they're getting older. They could live so much better if they downsized their living situation and were able to travel to see their children or take care of their health better to give them greater longevity. Quality of life is an important factor to consider at any age or stage of life. There comes a point where you have to ask, hey, how many years do we have left? Although you also have to accept never quite knowing the answer, celebrate this life now. Do everything you can to give your parents the best quality of life. A big part of quality of life is mindset. Instead of looking at it as having to make big, life-altering, scary changes, try to help them see the positives. It's a lot easier to say, you have to change your lifestyle, but now you get to do all these things that you've always dreamed about that make you happy in life. Then the doctor says you have to move and we have to sell your house because we can't afford it. Maybe there's a health situation, so your parents are limited in their options of where to live. But if they were lonely in the house by themselves, moving somewhere with more people who are at the same stage can lead to a better quality of life. If your parents have friends or people in the same age range who are facing similar decisions, get a few of them together to go look at retirement communities so it's not as scary as going alone. Instead of suffering alone at home or worrying about not knowing anyone, it will ease the transition as they meet new people, get more comfortable, and discover how happy they can be when all their needs are easily met. Medical decisions. You may end up being the medical and health conservator or trustee for your parents. This means that they grant you the responsibility of overseeing their healthcare and wellness choices based on a preset form that describes their wishes. In the resources section of my website at www.sheilamac.com/elders, you will find additional information about becoming a healthcare advocate. Sometimes an adult parent is going to choose a different treatment or living option than you want. At what point should you step in if your parent makes a decision that goes against your beliefs as to what's best for their health or safety? The reality is that as long as your parent, grandparent, or elder is of sound mind, they have a legal right in most countries to make their own healthcare decisions, even if they are diametrically opposed to your own. At the same time, there are some health situations that would require an adult child to step in. For instance, if you notice early signs of dementia or other rapid changes in their appearance or temperament. Does your elder parent forget things on the stove or where they live, or just seem suddenly disoriented? This could be a sign of mini strokes or of a concussion. Severe dehydration, low levels of vitamins or minerals like magnesium, or even a bad reaction to a new medication. You may have to step in and help whether they ask for it or not. Share the details you notice with your parents' doctor or take them for a checkup to see what's at the root of the problem. Try to have your parents choose their health care as they do their living situation, but when necessary, intervening quickly could save their lives. Financial decisions. Your parents or grandparents may need help with financial decisions, particularly around managing their household or care. If they choose to and are able to stay at home, how will financial decisions be made? Who will help with household management? If they have to go somewhere with a higher level of care, how does that affect your elder's financial decisions? As your parents get older, they may start to lose some of their discernment, and unscrupulous, predatory people may try to take advantage of that. One of my elderly neighbors was very philanthropic and very well off. He owned a lot of property and had a lot of money, which he donated to several different charitable organizations. When his memory and judgment started to falter a bit, somebody came in and convinced him to put all of his money in an account in the Cayman Islands, allegedly to protect it. My neighbor put all his money, millions of dollars, into this account, where it disappeared. The act threatened the quality of life for this man and his wife in their golden years. He was terribly ashamed, and they had to quickly sell some properties at a loss just to get back on their feet. He was fortunate to have that option to fall back on, but it also limited what he was able to do for other people because now he had to worry about taking care of himself and his wife. I've heard all kinds of stories about the sneaky things people will try to do when they think they can take advantage of someone's weakness. As an adult child or caretaker for an older relative, particularly if they're living independently, you will have to keep an eye on what's going on. They may not want to admit falling for a scam. Pay attention to anything that doesn't feel right. There will still be an adjustment to the change in roles. It may be difficult or embarrassing for your parent to have to admit they can't manage their household by themselves anymore, that they need help. If your parent is getting more confused or forgetful, you may need to find somebody you trust who can check on them more frequently if you can't. You may also need to help keep track of their finances so you can quickly see if anything unexpected appears. You might want to discuss their insurance options so the cost of their care is manageable and they have the best care possible. At the end of the day, all of these decisions are in support of giving your parents the best lives possible for their golden years. If you are listening in right now, this may be a great time for you to also create plans for your future elder care so that your children have an easier time during this period of your life. And if you are just tuning in, we are going to take a short moment to share about the sponsors of this episode. So stay tuned and we'll continue with Elder Care, caring for our parents next. If you are just tuning in, this is NBC Sheila Mack Show here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm your host, Sheila Mack, and today I'd like to give a special thanks to this episode's sponsor, Team Treehouse. That's right, teamtreehouse.com. So, if you're ready to launch your new career in coding, Treehouse has one of the best and most affordable online classrooms for you. At Treehouse, they have rethought the learning process and built a proven system to get you the skills and knowledge you need to achieve your goals. When you're done with a course, you haven't just watched a video. You learned, practiced, and absorbed a concept. Or choose to build a portfolio, create a network, and land your dream job with our boot camp style tech degree program. Land a development job this year. Whatever your goal will get you there. Start your 7-day free trial today. And you just need to go to www.teamtreehouse.com. Caretaker. That's you. Your parents need support, but you need support during this time too. When I was taking care of everybody in between hospital runs, I did a lot of thinking and journaling, trying to keep my head on right. I had to hold myself together because it was my time to support them. It felt similar to having a child going through an illness where you have to show up and be strong because you want them to be strong. You don't want them to feel sorry for themselves. You want to put them in a positive mental space so that they get the best results and outcomes from whatever procedures or situations they have to go through. But that means you also have to step into a very positive mental place. That's easier said than done, though. These are your parents, and you love them and want them to be immortal. You think, how can this be possible? Why is this happening to me? This only happens to other people. Anybody who has gone through this life shift has felt the same way, and we're all going to go there at some point. During this time, it's important to do whatever you can, meditation, affirmations, journaling, so you can show up as that solid, strong adult for your parents. Your energy is going to determine how your relationship continues, and it can help your bonds grow even stronger. It gives me strength to think that I was going to honor their choices as best I could because someday I'm going to go through a similar situation, and when I do, that's what I would want. When I had a hard time making a decision, I would ask myself, how would I feel in this situation? We tend to share some characteristics with our relatives, so reframing the situation in this way can help you put yourself in their shoes. Sometimes, as you're considering what your relative would want, the answer is, they love me so much that they would say, please go take a break. Go have dinner with your family. Go take care of yourself. As much as you feel like you've got to be there every second, would you as a parent want that for your child? No, you'd want them to go to the gym or have dinner and be with their children or get their nails done. Your parents want that for you. They want you to have positive self-care. They want you to not be exhausted or guilty about not being there around the clock. It's common sense, but in the middle of the situation, we don't think about that. Know that they want what's best for you too, and honor that. They may not be able to take care of you anymore, but they still want you to take care of yourself. And sometimes you just have to let somebody else be the bad guy, the doctor or nurse or whoever else is there. Then you get to slip back into the role of the loving child who is there to support them. Other people don't get it unless they've been there. One way to take care of yourself is to try to maintain your supportive relationships, but sometimes people just don't understand what you're going through. During this rock bottom situation in my life, I wanted to spend time with my friends, yet I had to prioritize caring for my elders. My friends didn't have all these relatives to care for, and most didn't have 6 children either. They would say, "Why don't you just relax or come out and have fun with us?" The reality was, I had so much responsibility being the main parent, breadwinner, and decision maker for my elders that it was all I could do to keep things going. After a while, my friends just stopped calling. The gift was that I also had friends in my community who were twice my age and who had parents and grandparents going through similar experiences. These women were my mentors and had a solid footing in this game of changing roles from child to adult to caregiver. During the time period when I was caring for all my relatives and working, I ran late for an obstetrician appointment. I called and they told me to still come in, but when I met with the doctor, she was upset. I apologized and explained that I had an emergency call with a doctor, but she didn't understand because she had never had to care for a relative. Later, her mother went through a serious illness and passed away, and my obstetrician had to take time off. That's when it really hit her. She apologized for getting upset that day. "You were telling me about your situation, but I just couldn't even fathom it. I'm so sorry." You'll have friends and other people who aren't in the same boat of responsibility, who aren't caring for elder parents, who won't understand that you may not be as social as you previously were, or you might have to change plans to go take care of something that comes up suddenly. With those people, you are just going to have to set that boundary. You don't have to give too much information, and you can do it in a loving way, but it's very necessary to stand up for yourself and do what you need to do. Ultimately, you'll discover that some people are fair weather friends. Those are the people who don't want to deal with what you're going through. They're just offended that you couldn't make it to their Tupperware party. You'll most likely lose some of these friends, but what you'll find is your tried and true real friends. Some of those true friends still may not be equipped to talk about your experience in depth or advise you about it, so you'll want to have a strong circle of women of different ages and experiences. If you don't already have that in your life, you can join the community of women going through life reboots at www.sheilamac.com/elders. That will also allow you to find and share different resources for whatever your particular need is at the moment, whether that's how to deal with someone with diabetes, dementia, or Alzheimer's. Your real friends will also be able to give you love and support. They can help you take your mind off what you're going through. You can connect and go dancing or swimming or out to dinner and just enjoy being with some of the people who know you the best and love you no matter what. Applying the Boots formula to Eldercare. Being. For years, I had to show up and be strong for my relatives. When my dad was going through another surgery for cancer, I showed up with a smile so that he felt as happy as possible instead of being sad that I was sad. It's not that I never showed emotion. As you learned in the grief chapter, I cried in my quiet hours, but I had to be strong for a loved one going through something. So who are you going to be when you show up for your parents? A child, someone your parent still feels responsible for and has to take care of, or an adult who can help them make decisions on the level of a partner. Orientation. The situation is what it is. Your mom had a stroke or your dad has cancer. Everything is different, and you have to go through this. It's not better than it is. It's not worse than it is, but this is it now. What are you going to do? You're not responsible for what's happening to your parents, but you may be responsible for what happens next. It can be a shock to find out that somebody you've always looked up to in your life, the person who took care of you, now needs you to be the guide. It's a humbling experience, and it's a powerful way to honor your parents, but it means that no matter how old you are, you have to grow up even more to take on these responsibilities. It's hard to assume that role and let go of the fact that you can no longer lean on them. Now they're leaning on you. So now you have to find your strength. For me, I thought that if I was in their shoes, I'd hope that I would have somebody who cared enough and was strong enough to help me out. I know who I am, and I know my integrity, so I chose to show up and give back out of my heart. Part of your orientation is to decide where you're at and how much you're going to participate. Look honestly and truthfully at how much you can do without going downhill yourself, so you can give the best results both for taking care of your parents and your own needs. If you're lucky enough to have siblings or other family members working together on this, you can split up the time and extra costs. Sharing the responsibility also allows you to strategize effectively so that you're all contributing to getting the best care for your loved one. Order of operations. The first order of operations is also part of orientation. You have meetings with doctors and advisors and advocates for their health and finances on your side so you can understand the situation as much as possible. And then you make a good action plan, involving your parents as much as possible so they still have ownership of their lives. Thinking. What is your mindset? What is the vision? What is the best quality of life this person you're caring for can have? You also have to get your elder to see that vision of the best quality of life given the situation at hand. If they can't tell you, you know them, what do you think they would want? And what's possible for you while you're dealing with this extra responsibility on top of everything else you do? I still had to run my business and take care of my children, but some other things had to go. Maybe the house wasn't perfect. I had to adjust my standards a little. I didn't get to go to the gym as much, though I did prioritize self-care. I just had to remind myself that this is a season. Stepping up. Step up to do what needs to be done, but you also have to step up and honor what they would want you to do. Step up with logic, love, and compassion. From Eldercare rock bottom to moment of empowerment. My relatives and I had to figure out each person's situations one step at a time, with a lot of concessions made and many hours of talking and working with the doctors. When I was younger, there were a lot of hard times where that parent-child relationship wasn't always there. But when they got sick, I was able to carve out the time to spend with them, and we had some beautiful, open conversations. Past hurts were healed. It was empowering to have an adult relationship with my parents on a whole new level of respect and love. They were still my parents, but they also became my best friends. To be able to reclaim those relationships and take it a step farther was very powerful and healing for all of us going through this difficult time. When taking care of all these people, I know there was an end in sight, but that wasn't a positive thing. So my moment of empowerment was being able to give this great care to my family, to give back to the people who had given to me. And now, after going through that in my own life, I can relate to people who are currently going through it. The gift is being able to help guide them to find compassion for their family members and themselves. Reboot activity. Staying social. Your parent may need you to step in, especially after their own grieving or other rock bottom situation. Many times, with a health issue or loss of a spouse or close friends, a parent may start to isolate. When a senior begins to emotionally or socially isolate, their brain sits unchallenged. This isolation is a huge risk factor for depression as well as loss of physical fitness and could lead to serious health problems. Being surrounded by friends and loved ones, however, keeps an aging adult's mind active and sharp. Staying involved in the community will help a maturing parent feel more motivated, remain active, take care of their personal appearance, and engage in intellectually stimulating activities. Here are some ideas for helping your parent to stay social. Check in with family and friends who are willing to attend activities with your parent, or better yet, invite your parent to social activities with others in their peer group if possible. Look into local clubs and classes that your parent may be interested in. Places to look include the local community, recreational activities, or senior center. Meetup.com, YMCAs, and health clubs also offer options that may be fun. Your parent may be interested in volunteering at an animal shelter, school, or political campaigns. Transportation issues. If your parent is no longer safe to drive, check into community programs like Access or Dial-A-Ride. There is always Uber and Lyft, which have made getting around in major cities worldwide hassle-free and far more affordable than in the past. Your parent may need help with the app, or you can book a ride from your smartphone. If you feel concerned that your adult parent may need further help or is not functioning safely at home alone, contact their doctor to see if assisted living situations would be an option. It is always important to seek medical advice immediately if there is a significant or sudden change in your parent's personality, memory, or ability to function. It may be signs of something far more serious than a failing memory or aging. The faster you get the medical attention, the better the chances your parent will have a full or better recovery. A very accurate treatment or living arrangement plan helps your parent have the best quality of life possible. My gift to you. Dear readers, once I realized how sacred and fleeting time was with my beloved elders, that's when I started to create ways to care for my elders while living a balanced lifestyle. If you desire to give the elder parent or loved one in your life the best of care and quality time, while also caring for your career, family, and not neglecting yourself, then this gift is for you. Go to www.sheilamac.com/elderreboot to receive the ebook, A Reboot for Eldercare, How to Give the Gift of Time to Yourself and Your Loved One when it matters most. Chapter 8. Parenting Your Parents, Eldercare. I'm a member of what they call the sandwich generation, women who care for their parents and their children at the same time. In my case, though, it was more like a full-course meal. I took care of both sets of grandparents, my parents and my children. My mom and dad both had serious health issues at the same time that my grandparents on both sides were also having trouble. I ran around visiting relatives in 3 different hospitals and a rehabilitation center. Plus, I was running my 4 gift stores and pregnant with all the extra emotions that come with that. I was only in my mid-20s, the only child and grandchild, so I had nobody to take over visiting one hospital after the other, or to help figure out how to care for all these people. This was so much to take on. To be the sole decision maker for all these family members, the only one to meet with doctors, to consider every option and understand every treatment. I wanted to run to my parents or grandparents and say, "Hey, give me some advice. I'm still young. How do I deal with all this?" Neither of my grandparents on either side wanted to leave their homes and go into a nursing home. When they got closer to the end of their lives, though, they had to be hospitalized. The doctor wanted them to go into a rehabilitation center, but they refused. I offered to have them come stay with me so I could take care of them in my home. They didn't like each other, though, so they didn't want to live together. They just wanted to go home. But I couldn't pay for 4 people to have the round-the-clock care they needed. We were all stuck at rock bottom together. The roles change again. This chapter is the opposite of the previous. Instead of talking about parenting your adult child, we're now going to look at the flip side, having to become a parent figure for your elderly parents once they're not able to fully take care of themselves anymore. You used to be the child, even as you're an adult, and now you have to become the parent in the relationship. You're used to having your parents be the solid rock in your life, turning to them for advice and support, and now you're responsible for making decisions about their life. The roles you have with your parent have to be turned upside down. There may be pushback from your parents, whose roles are changing too. Who the hell are you to check up on them and tell them to take their medications? But if you have built that deeper, stronger relationship discussed in Chapter 7, it will make the transition to caring for your parent easier because you have healthy boundaries and are on closer terms. Don't treat your parent like a child. Even though you're an adult with the responsibility of parenting a parent, if you treat your parent like a child, you're going to get the same results as with a child. They'll become resentful if you push them to do what you think is best without respecting what they want. Let's say you and your siblings or other relatives, if you have them, have decided to sell your parents' house because they're no longer able to live alone. You look at it as making it easier on your family to help take care of them, but they don't want anything to do with it. It's their house, and that's where they're staying. They're adults. They're used to taking care of themselves. They probably still think they've got it all under control, even though they might not have any control at all anymore. They don't want you to tell them what to do. They have to come to it themselves. You're going to continue getting that pushback unless you can honor them and plant the seeds of the idea until your encouragement leads your parent to come to that conclusion on their own. You can give them other resources and ways of looking at the situation so that instead of coming from you as a command, you're guiding them to that place. This could be as simple as asking doctors or wellness care facilities to explain the process, allowing your parent to ask questions, going on tours, and involving them in exploring their options. There is something magical about not forcing anything, yet allowing your parent to discover the options and choose what is best for them. You may be able to interview other peers who have faced similar transitions and who are really happy about their choice. It could be even better if you found a person who initially questioned or fought this choice for fear of losing their freedom and autonomy, who now finds it to be the best decision they ever made. If you Google these options, you'll find many interviews and stories that you can share with your parent. When it's their choice, just like with your children, you support their options. They get the buy-in of the outcome, the results of making that choice, and then you're not forcing it. They're like, "Let's go, I'm packing my bag." You're there to support them and honor what they choose to do. This is a tough time. They're going through something too, something that may be their own rock bottom, which they may or may not come out of. It may mean a very different lifestyle and quality of life. Things are already hard for your parents. Having to make this huge shift can lead to feeling a loss of control and autonomy. You don't want to make their life any harder than it has to be. Allowing your parents to maintain some personal responsibility gives them self-esteem and a sense of purpose and meaning. You are giving them that empowerment, that sense of owning their life and their decisions. Once they own it, it's so much easier than you pushing it on them. Sibling rivalry. You may have brothers and sisters or other family members who have their own feelings about the decision of what to do for your parent. Eldercare can become a conflict of the heart, which may then turn into sibling rivalry. If you have siblings who are also involved with your parent as co-trustees or caregivers, you all want the best possible wellness routine, living situation, or choice for that person, but you may all have vastly different ideas of what that looks like. When each person feels like their idea is the most informed decision, war often breaks out on the home front. When this happens, it may become necessary to get a third party involved. All right, I have a full chapter on elder care, parenting our parents in my book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, available on Audible, Amazon, and Kindle. And also, I have courses and masterminds on Patreon at patreon.com/reboots, REEBOOTS. Patreon, patreon.com/reboots. As always, I wish you life, love, laughter, and light. See you next time.